Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Garawal. Today I thought I would review the most recent books I read over the autumn season. Firstly, I enjoyed a thriller novel called Obsessed by Lisa North. Obsessed is about a woman called Laura who is married and has a daughter and stepson. Laura is a happily married woman until one day her first love from school turns up at her daughter's nursery with his own child. Laura betrays her family and begins an affair with her old flame Alexis. However, Alexis ends up being killed and the police begin investigating Laura. The race is on for Laura to discover who the real killer is and will she be the killer's next victim. Obsessed is an excellent thriller that I highly recommend. Another excellent book I enjoyed by Megan Lally is That's Not My Name. The story begins with a teenage girl waking up on the side of a road with no memory of who she is. She ends up at a police station, still with amnesia, and a man turns up with her birth certificate and other documents claiming to be her father. He tells the teenage girl that her name is Mary. Mary goes home with the man believing he is her dad. The story takes a terrifying turn as Mary begins to believe the man is not her real dad. Meanwhile, in another town, a teenage boy called Drew is being accused of killing his girlfriend Lola, who stormed off from his car one night after an argument. Lola has disappeared and the townfolk accusing eyes are on Drew. Drew is desperate not to only clear his name but to find Lola. The terrifying story culminates into a shocking ending. I have to say Megan Lally is an incredible author as her books make a huge impact with high-impact, shocking endings. I also enjoy Megan Lally's cool style of writing. Megan Lally's books in the horror/thriller genre are my favourite since reading books in the Point Horror series by various authors in my teenage years. The two books I have read by Megan Lally called No Place Left to Hide and That's Not My Name are phenomenal. Both books are a must-read for horror thriller fans. Through hearsay, I was curious to read a book called How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie, which is deemed to be a dark comedy. The story is about a young woman called Grace who sets out for revenge when her mum dies, as her mum and herself were shunned by her dad and his extremely wealthy family. One by one, Grace begins to kill every member of the wealthy family. She is bitter about her mum's death and life of being shunned by her real dad's family and of course by himself. Each member of his family meets a grisly death at the hands of Grace. Grace is also bitter about not being raised with the family's extreme wealth. How to Kill Your Family is a dark, unforgettable read about a young woman's bloodthirsty bitterness and revenge. It is definitely worth the read. I recently enjoyed a 3-in-1 book series on my Kindle called Weybridge Academy, the complete series by Alexandra Moody. The story is about a girl called Isabel whose life turns upside down when her estranged father, who turns out to be an extremely wealthy businessman, turns up in her life, and it turns out her mum has agreed to send her to a private boarding school called the Weybridge Academy. It turns out Isabel accepts the offer as in her current school her female friend and former boyfriend have been adulterous with one another behind her back. Isabel takes the new school offer as an escape route so she doesn't have to keep seeing her former close friend and ex-boyfriend still in a relationship together. Isabel, whilst getting to know her dad, is thrust into a world of children from extremely wealthy families. Isabel's dad sets out one condition for herself, to stay away from a student called Noah Hastings who attends Weybridge Academy. However, Isabel finds it hard to stay away from the handsome Noah Hastings, who ends up becoming irresistible to Isabel. However, later in the story, Isabel finds out that Noah's granddad is a dangerous business rival of her dad's. This ruins the chances of Noah and Isabel being together. However, circumstances take a fatalistic, dangerous turn when Noah's granddad's grudge against Isabel and her family turns deadly. I'd give the Weybridge Academy series by Alexandra Moody a 10 out of 10, as I thoroughly enjoyed the different twists and turns the story took, from forbidden romance to deadly consequences. The series is an extremely enjoyable read. A unique book I recently read is The Rebel Son by Andy Meslen. I'd never read a book about Abe Bond before, so this book was a new suspenseful read. The Rebel Son is book 5 in the Detective Cat Ballantine books. I chose to read book 5 by being intrigued by the synopsis. The Rebel Sun begins with Detective Kat Ballantine in a race against time to get to the powerhouse music venue, as her husband and son are inside, and there has been a bomb threat against the venue. The suspense and anticipation as the detective races to get to the venue is nail-biting. After the attack, Detective Kat is adamant to find out who the perpetrators of the bomb attack are. However, events take a mysterious turn as a journalist who called 999 at the same time as the bomb threat is found dead at his house. The two events seem to be intertwined, and the detective makes it her mission to get to the truth of the link between the two occurrences. The Rebel Sun is a thrilling, mysterious, nail-biting story that I highly recommend. I absolutely adored a recent book about magic I read called The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I was immediately intrigued at the start of the book as the main character, Cassie, who works in a bookstore, is given a book as a gift by a customer. When Cassie returns to her abode, herself and her housemate Izzy discover that the book is magical and can open a door directly to anywhere on the planet. The book is called The Book of Doors. Izzy is wary of the power of the book. Cassie, however, begins enjoying using the book to go anywhere in the world instantly. Izzy's instincts turn out to be correct, as there are more magical books like The Book of Doors, and very dangerous evil individuals are hunting all the books down to use the power of the books for their own agenda. The Book of Doors' power is deemed as very valuable for evildoers. Cassie and Izzy are thrust into a world of magic, villains, and great danger. Help arrives in the form of a man called Drummond Fox, who has a secret hidden library containing other magical books. He is extremely worried about the Book of Doors being found by evil, who will use it to enter his library and use the books of power for their own evil purposes, which may mean destroying the world. The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown is a fantastic, alluring, unforgettable, captivating story to read. I highly recommend the book to all magical book fantasy lovers. Another fantasy book I recently enjoyed is called One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. The story is set in an ancient time before TV. I was immediately captivated by the magical allure of the story. The story is about a town called Blunder, which is cut off from the rest of the world, as an entity known as the Spirit of the Wood surrounded the town with a dangerous mist. Legend goes that a king made a deal with the Spirit of the Wood in order to gain access to magic. The spirit allowed the king to make 12 types of what is called Providence cards, cards containing different types of powers. The spirit, however, grew jealous as the townspeople went to the king for magic as opposed to herself, and for revenge cursed the town to be surrounded by the evil, dangerous mist. Enter our main character, Elspeth, who, along with other children, are hiding, having a magical power, as the current King Rowan kills any children born with magic and calls them the infected. Elspeth is looked after by her aunt and uncle, but has a secret she has hid for 11 years. She touched a nightmare card and an entity entered her mind, and she has been sharing her mind with the entity ever since. It becomes Elspeth's mission with the Yu family to set out to find and reunite all 12 Providence cards, which is what is needed to destroy the dark magic of the mist, and to remove the magic from any infected children, as they're called, so King Rowan doesn't persist on killing them all. After enjoying the amazing magical dark story, I downloaded the sequel to the book called Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, which I am currently reading and enjoying. In the sequel, a team has set out to find the last card needed to reunite the Providence cards called the Twin Elders. The team's only choice is to be guided by the entity in Elspeth's mind, as only he knows the location of the card. I am enthralled currently by the sequel after thoroughly enjoying One Dark Window. I look forward to continuing following the rest of the journey in the book, Two Twisted Crowns, which is the final book in the series. And that concludes Season 3, Episode 5 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Gurwal, where I've reviewed the most recent books I have read, mainly over the autumn season. So goodbye, everyone. Until next time, best wishes to all. Bye-bye.